Peppa was standing by the gate. Suddenly, she heard a whisper with echoes of many voices. Peppa entered the garden. She approached the central apple tree. Its roots protruded from the ground. The branches of the tree suddenly jerked. They formed a huge gaping mouth in the trunk from which a growing whisper escaped. The leaves on the apple tree instantly turned black. They fell off, turning into black dust. Bare branches curled like bony fingers. They reached out to Peppa. She jumped back, looked around, and saw Grandma Pig walking straight toward the tree. Grandma Pig stopped in front of the mouth tree. A frozen smile was on her face. Her lips moved silently. Black tentacles, resembling roots, burst out of the ground and wrapped around Grandma's legs. They crawled higher, up to her waist. Slime left dark stains on her dress. Grandpa Pig stepped outside. He shouted and rushed toward Grandma. He grabbed her by the shoulders, trying to pull her away. New tentacles shot out from the tree's mouth. They wrapped around Grandpa's arms, neck, and torso. His eyes glazed over with horror. The mouth of the tree opened wider. The tentacles began pulling Grandma and Grandpa toward the trunk. Peppa tore herself away and ran through the garden toward the house. She slammed the door shut behind her and leaned against it, heart pounding wildly. The hallway was dark. Curtains on the windows were drawn tightly shut. Silence. Grandma was sitting on the sofa looking at Peppa. Her skin was gray and cracked like bark. Instead of hands, dry, gnarled branches. A faint whisper emanated from her mouth, part of the choir. Peppa ran to the kitchen. Grandpa was there, his body covered with black veins like roots. His eyes were glazed over and lifeless. Grandpa stepped forward. His root legs creaked on the floor. From a dark corner of the room came a screeching sound. Monstrous roots slowly emerged from a crack in the floor. A dense ball of black, shiny roots as thick as a hand. In its center glowed two dim red points like eyes. Peppa pressed herself against the locked front door as twisted figures of Grandma and Grandpa moved closer in front of her. The light inside flickered out. Only glowing red eyes of monster roots remained. The last thing Peppa heard were merging whispers of the choir, the voices of loved ones sounding louder than all. Peppa put on an old record. The cheerful melody suddenly crackled and slowed down. Old songs remember more than words. Shadows stretched toward Peppa. On the TV, the silhouette of Mr. Melodious. A whisper from the speaker.
Peppa, George, onto the stage.
Black tar flows from the speaker. A thud from above. Child's room. The squeak of toys. A tentacle of tar burst out of the speaker. Peppa jumped back. The shadow of the turntable grew up to the ceiling in the shape of Melodious. The conductor calls the orchestra. Peppa ran upstairs. Tar was chasing her. The stairs rippled like water. Shadows of the railing. Tentacles. On the landing, Peppa looked back. Below stood Melodious. A flick of his spike. Drops of tar dripped from above. On the steps, distorted notes. Peppa burst into the nursery, slammed the door shut. Suddenly, a knock sounded. A refuge or a stage. George froze. Boys jerked in sync. Wallpaper, pulsating notes. The ceiling, hanging tentacles. George turned around. Black eyes. A mechanical Peppa and Susie decided to go to the beach. The clouds were gathering. Waves roared with gloomy thunder, and the wind howled. The girls began building sand castles. Suddenly, they noticed a dark whirlpool in the water, pulling everything around it. Suddenly, the water monster emerged from the water, sinister with shiny scales and creepy, empty eyes. "I've been waiting for you," he said. "I guard this abyss and take everyone to the bottom. This abyss has swallowed many. It takes those who are not afraid of their fears. If you want to learn its secret, you need to throw something precious to you into this abyss." Susie threw her favorite toy into the whirlpool. The water in the abyss splashed and terrifying faces of lost souls appeared on the surface. Peppa threw her favorite ball, and at that moment, the whirlpool boiled over, swallowing her soul. "You have become part of me. Now you will stay in this abyss forever." Their souls were pulled into watery silence. When they opened their eyes, they found themselves on the dark seabed. They noticed two red eyes watching them from the darkness. Suddenly, a terrifying sea duck jumped out, sharp-toothed and enormous. Peppa thought it looked familiar. The duck transformed into an even more horrifying silhouette that chased them across the seabed. The girls tried to swim faster, but their strength was fading. Suddenly, they spotted a small cave and quickly hid inside. The duck swam past. They caught their breath, but then light appeared behind them again. This time, two green eyes. With a wild scream, they jumped out of the cave. Behind them emerged a huge sea dragon with sharp teeth, long whiskers, and enormous claws. It wrapped its tentacles around them and dragged them into its cave. No one ever saw them again. No, subscribe. Nightmares arrive. Every night, precisely at 3 o'clock, a knock sounded at the door. Hollow, methodical. Peppa opened the door. No one was there. Only an immaculate box lay on the threshold, unmarked, tied with a glossy black ribbon. Inside, on a velvet pillow, lay a new Labubu figurine. Today's was covered in sticky glitter. It smelled faintly of decay. At the bottom of the box, a scratched inscription read, "You are signed forever." Peppa shoved the box into the far corner of the closet. The knock repeated at night, but now it came from inside the closet, then from under the bed. In the morning, the figurine stood on bedside table. By itself, the glitter had fallen to the floor, forming a shimmering trail to the door. Over the week, all the figurines had been placed around the house. The family admired them. What a lovely collection. Dad stood in the corner of the living room, motionless. His smile was too wide. His eyes didn't blink. Mom was in the kitchen, repeating the same thing. "What a beautiful toy." She stroked the figurine. George sat nearby on the floor. He also held a figurine in his hands. He was quietly laughing. Peppa went for a walk in the park. Suddenly, a courier appeared in the light of a street lamp. Tall, unnaturally thin. Instead of a head, he wore a rough burlap sack. A whisper emanated from the sack. The streetlights flickered. The whole family stood behind Peppa. They each held a Labubu figurine. Their eyes turned crimson. The family reached out to Peppa. Their movements were perfectly synchronized. The courier silently pulled out a huge box. It had Peppa's name written on it. The ribbon on the box untied itself. The silk ribbon slithered across the floor like a black snake. A sound was heard, like tearing skin, and a quiet laugh. It came from the sack on the courier's head. Peppa stepped back, her back pressed against a cold bench. The family's hands touched her shoulders. Glitter spilled from the box, filling the air with the sweet smell of decay.